Standing by to go on radio. And welcome to Pasadena. It is hour number 2 of the Key Bank Countdown to kickoff, and we are live staring at the Rose Bowl. It is 60 and sunny. It's only going to get better. It is the 110th Rose Bowl game. Thanks to Miz for hosting hour number 1 and holding it down back in Ann Arbor as we were getting ready outside the Rose Bowl. We are on the south side of the stadium, just outside Gate A. We'll be here for the next 2 hours before we head inside at around 11:25 local time. So in a little less than 20 minutes from now, just to our left, between, I guess that's Gate A and B maybe. I don't know, just to our left is where the Michigan team's going to be arriving in, again, a little bit less than 20 minutes. We are here, fellas. We are here. Happy game day, Steve Clark.
Ira, it's so incredible to be here. I was just on the field a couple hours ago, and I probably should have lost it and cried, but I held it together. I held it together. It was such a meaningful moment for me to be here and to bring my son as well. I didn't get the chance to come here with my dad, but this is my first trip here, and I'm with my son, and I couldn't be happier to be with you guys as well.
Now we're checking this list off the bucket list there, Sam. We get through a broadcast live in front of the Rose Bowl. Man. I did the same thing Steve did. I had a chance to stroll pregame, walk around the field. The mountains over there, the stadium right there, walk in the field. It is, I was telling this to Steve pregame. As an adult, as we go to these different sporting events, we go to different things, mythical places that really capture you. In my adult life, only 2 places have given me the feels like I had walking in today.
Yeah. So
the only other place, Augusta National.
So I haven't been to Augusta, but this, I remember going on the Big House Field for the first time and having the jelly knees and the butterflies in the stomach. And it was like that the first time I was on this Rose Bowl field back in 2004. The grass felt like cotton. It was like everything was, how your senses get heightened to certain things. This is one of those places that evokes those kinds of feelings because it takes us all back. Who didn't grow up? If you love Michigan, if you grew up in Michigan, this is an iconic place. And so when you go, it's like a pilgrimage. It's like you're going to a place that you've been worshiping your entire life. Yeah. And I know that's what you must feel like right now. I hate to draw religious references.
Yes.
But I mean, if we just apply it to sports and set aside for a minute that there is religion, but as far as sports religion goes, Steve, this is on that level. This is Michigan fans making a pilgrimage to football's version of a holy place.
This is a place that I would choose to go right off the top of the list. It's taken so many years for me to get here, but I'm happy for that, and I hope I can represent some other people who have either gone once or haven't gone at all, that I'm trying to feel it for you all and kind of give you a description today of what's going on here. And what we have going on right now is a number of buses that are taking important people, officials, and eventually the players are just all right behind us. A massive amount of Alabama and Michigan fans are congregating just outside the stadium and behind the camera that you can see on your video screens right now. So it's a big party right now. It's been a big party for the last couple of days. And once again, the weather does not disappoint. It is actually beautiful. It is sunny. And even though it might be in the low 60s, there's a difference between the low 60s in Pasadena and the low 60s in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Huge difference. But it is absolutely glorious out here.
It is a beautiful day. The Wolverines are making their 21st appearance in the Rose Bowl game, which for now is tops in the Big Ten in appearances. But Michigan's 21 Rose Bowls is actually second all-time to USC's 34. So do they become the leader all-time in the Big Ten because they join the Big Ten next year?
I guess they would be. But we have something on top of USC that I thought was really intriguing. The pep rally yesterday for the Michigan alumni took place at the Galen Center, which is where USC plays basketball, and it officially became USC's first Big Ten event, and it was stripped down for Michigan logos and digital lighting and scoreboard trailing, not only at the baseline and court level, but also between the mezzanine levels. So it was really weird that we had a Michigan takeover already at the USC basketball court on New Year's Eve of 2024.
Michigan is 8-12 all time in the Rose Bowl, including, as you heard from Professor Julie and Steve as well in the first hour of the show, the first Rose Bowl, a 49-0 Michigan win over Stanford. But obviously, we're not expecting that type of score today. But what we are expecting today is a great game in a magical environment. As Sam is continuing to soak it in, and we got a lot of Michigan fans hanging out.
Might be able to hear some of them in the crowd.
I'm sorry. My wife's saying wave to me. Everyone's saying wave to me.
You're on the radio, Sam.
I'm talking.
Hey, we're live on the south side of the stadium, just outside Gate A. We're between the Jackie Robinson statue, which is over my shoulder, and the Rose Bowl. We came up yesterday for a site check, and that drive-in, Steve, when we first came in, the trees apart, you come down the valley, and you just see the stadium. Didn't come in that way today because I'm pretty sure that's part of the parade route, and so we didn't come in that way. We looped around the city and then came back down, but we're same thing. You come down and just we were here at 8:15 this morning, and the parking lot was filling up. The tailgaters were out and getting ready to go, and of course, that is 11:15 Eastern time.
Yeah, when you stand here, you realize that there is mountains surrounding you except for one part, which is directly behind us. And that is the only gap. The rest of it is mountains around the side. Some beautiful homes that you can see, mansions behind the 50-yard line. They would have to have a telescope to kind of see what's going on in the field.
Up there at the top of the hill that nobody's going to be able to see is a compound. Is remarkable.
And so we're kind of on an infield. We have the Big Ten Network is literally just a football throw away from us. And then on the other side, a short toss is a serious sports channel that we all have listened to at some point. So we're just kind of soaking it in, and all the fans are here to send Michigan their support and the support of the program, Sam, which you and Ira have helped create to be such a big institution that it is.
Yeah, and if you're watching us on the stream, it might be a little grainy. We are going over Wi-Fi, so bear with us. We're trying to give you as much of the scene as possible.
We're doing the best we can.
Doing the best we can. So I got people say, "Hey, it's a little hazy." When the signal is strong, the resolution will be stronger. But bear with us because we're going to bring you this scene all day long. But guys, even in the press conference yesterday to talk a little bit about the game, these Bama people, they think that this is not going to be a game. Like one of the guys asked Jim, he said, how does it feel to, all season long, you're the number one team in the country. And then at the end of the year, it's kind of like no one's even kind of talking about Michigan anymore. And, you're coming in here and Bama's the team on the roll and kind of trending up. And meanwhile, you guys have kind of been struggling a little bit and people are kind of down on Michigan. What does it feel like to be the underdog? And Jim Jim can give you those pauses, right? And he gave him a pause. He was like, wow, it's a lot to unpack there. Like, really? We didn't lose a game. We didn't look up and, have a 4th and 30 conversion just to make it here. And we're the team that limped in. It's just perception nationally, certainly perception from the SEC folks, is that Michigan is way overmatched, too much speed on the other side. The Big Ten is overrated. And J.J. McCarthy, for all he did early in the season, they were playing cupcakes and they had the signs. That's the narrative outside of Ann Arbor right now about this game.
Well, that is the SEC in general about their feelings in the Big Ten, no matter who they're playing. So that is a part of it. I sense the same thing, Sam. In a way, I think it was sort of like last year where maybe TCU didn't feel appreciated by Michigan media. The shoe is on the other foot when it comes to Alabama and the Wolverines. And you did hear the chuckles in yesterday's press conference where the Alabama people were actually seemed to be laughing at Jim Harbaugh instead of laughing with Jim Harbaugh in some of those moments. But when it comes to the game itself and the interpretation, if you're another university or another football team that beat 2 top 10 rated teams in the month of November, how do you think they would be treated, Sam?
Right.
Not the way Michigan is being treated right now. How would a team that in 3 of their last 4 games beat defenses that are statistically in the top 5? Not the way Michigan is being treated by most of the people in the general public and the writers that were out there. And I'll show you something else. I rode on the bus today, with Bruce Feldman behind me, Nicole Auerbach in front of me, Stewie Mandel on my left, Chris Doring from the SEC Network also on my left, and I'm probably missing a couple of others, listening to them all talk and congregate talking about this game, and on to Houston, where they already think this is a foregone conclusion. We shall see, everybody.
All right, so still to come on this show, we're going to meet the Crimson Tide. We'll give you our preview of the Crimson Tide from here at the Rose Bowl. We're going to have the winning game plan and more on the Rose Bowl, number 1 versus number 4 Alabama in the college football playoff semifinal. Also, later on in the show, we're going to push this down. It was going to be next. We're going to push it down. We're going to preview the other game as well, Washington versus Texas in the Sugar Bowl. We're going to preview that one as well. But inside a break, we got to recap Rose Bowl week. There was a lot that's happened. You guys with the press conferences. They ate a lot of prime rib. They went to Disneyland. There were a lot of things that happened. So we want to kind of give a flavor of the week. And obviously that gets into talking about what the players had to say. I know you talked to Trente and you talked about Jim Harbaugh a little bit. So we're going to get to that coming up as well. Take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're getting into the Rose Bowl week. We're going to be here for the arrival of the team at around 11:25 Pacific time. And we're going to let the fans chanting behind us take us to break as you were listening to the KeyBank Calendar Kickoff live from the Rose Bowl on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket.
We'll be right back on the stream as well.
All right, so I am going to come over here. Uh-huh.
Story. Okay. So I want to just keep it just like that when y'all talking, because what I did was
when you zoom in, so there's a focus ring right here. You can focus it manually if it's giving you some problems. So here's what we're gonna do in order to make it.
because when I looked at his phone, it was kind of blurry, and then when I went back to the wide shot, it was much better.
Okay. And then let's see. Zoom in now. You said when you zoom in.
Yeah. Zoomed in a little more.
So you gotta touch it. See, it's on the focus. The focus is
I go to them.
yeah. Put that box on, and it'll focus.
Oh, okay, so I don't have to touch it.
You don't have right now, but when you zoom out, the what goes in the focus is the box. And so let me see if I can change the autofocus. That's how we're gonna do it.
Okay, so
See,
don't worry about
look at that. Now it's much better.
okay. My hand is working backward.
If you zoom in on him, that's about as close as you can get.
That's okay.
Or you can move the tripod closer if you want.
Here, you get in.
So let me go like the people real quick. Take it off mute.
Shout out to all the WTK fans that stopped by.
Get over these Michigan fans. Go Blue! Go Blue! Go Blue! Go Blue! That's what I'm talking about. Go Blue!
Go Blue!
Go Blue! Go Blue! Some Go Blues! That's right.
It seems like it's the Michigan arrival.
All right, somebody's coming in team-wise.
Not yet.
Yeah, who?
And then how long for
Oh, I don't know. Vixen Network.
Bama. No, it's Michigan.
The Michigan buses arrived. The buses arrived. Standing by, 10 seconds.
So, Miz, switch the camera. Switch the camera, Miz. You can hear me. Switch cameras.
And we are back on the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff, brought to you by Key Bank, fueled by Bud Light, driven by Brighton
We are
Forge, powered by
live
Wolverine,
from
and we are
the
live
Rose Bowl.
from
We are
the
just outside Gate A on the south side of the Rose Bowl. The Michigan team just arrived. The buses are pulling up. The fans gave them a nice greeting, and now the players are going to get off the bus, head into the stadium, get ready for their, of course, their pregame routines that they all get into. And today is the sixth meeting between Michigan and Alabama. Alabama leads Series 3-2. Michigan's 2 wins were in bowl games, the 1988 Hall of Fame game and the 2000 Orange Bowl. I have fond memories of being in Miami for that one. Alabama has 2 bowl wins and, of course, the regular season win when we were down in Dallas back in 2012. So, guys, it's been one of those weeks, right? Rose Bowl week is not just about the game. So the team flew out, Sam, on the 26th, and immediately they go to they had a day at Disneyland or an afternoon, evening at Disneyland. They have the Beach Bowl, and it seems like they get all that kind of stuff. And they also have a lot of media obligations as well. I know, Steve, you were around for some of those. So what did you pick up on as you were able to get out here on Thursday? I know your guys were out here a couple days earlier, and you talked to them as well. What are the things, the big takeaways from Rose Bowl week as you were getting ready for the game?
Health. This team is healthier. I think there's a combination of factors here. Let's back up to preparation for TCU last year. Spent a lot of time in the offseason talking to the players about what do you think went wrong. It's kind of hard for them to process in the moment. They said we didn't do too much different. Hard to really say. Don't think we overlooked them. Don't think that we were too loose. At one point, he said maybe we over-prepared a little bit. In retrospect, it's funny how actually being in it again kind of makes you reflect a little bit. And I was talking to Rob Moore about this. He said, you know what, I think we did kind of take them a little light. He said, I think it took us a minute to realize that, you know what we thought we were going to do coming in, as far as, smash fest and that kind of thing, that it wasn't going to necessarily be that kind of party. But the other thing that he said that I think was more poignant, because once they got in a groove, they were rolling. He said, what feels different this year, my legs. He said, I feel so much pressure. And it's not just me because I missed a couple of games early in the season. He said, we did some things, the coaching staff did some things different during the year to keep us fresher in terms of the schedule during the year, schedule during bowl prep, that has the team collectively with fresher legs heading into this game. And of course, they're not going to overlook Bama, Steve. That's the benefit of playing a team like this. They have your attention as soon as you see their name in the headline.
Yeah, and Roman Wilson was another guy who thought at the end of the season that his legs were just darn tired, and I think he were dead at that moment. So it's 3 basically 4 weeks before this game now. You want to see J.J. McCarthy healthy and able to run, and that's one of the big keys to the game. We'll get to that later on. But everybody's health is involved. It's good to be able to refresh and to get excited for this one, which we all are.
It's interesting, Sam, because usually we talk over this 3-4 week window of time. We're like, all right, gives them plenty of time to go into the lab and come up with all this creative and whatever stuff. And maybe there is that. But everybody that comes up to me and everybody I've talked to, like, so what's the most important part about this? I'm like, the month to rest. Yeah, get in the tub, right? Keep getting in the tub, keep getting treatment, and get healthy, because this team, they've played a lot of physical games, right? That last month of games, Penn State's a physical game. Ohio State, obviously, a physical and mentally draining game. And then you come back the next week, you have to play another very physical game. The team needed that rest. So you get that part of it. And then you get the other side of it, which is you had the injury to Zach Zinner in the Ohio State game. You have the week to get ready for the first game. But now you have a month for those guys to get ready and have everybody acclimate to maybe some new roles along the offensive line as well.
Yeah, man. Listen, as you hear the national punditry and opposing fan bases talk about what happened to Michigan in the last month of the season, kind of touched on it in the last segment, Steve and Ira. They think that the competition got better and Michigan didn't have the signs all of a sudden. Now, it doesn't necessarily jive. Like, if you go back to when the sign stealing thing, it was Michigan State and Purdue happened, and the offense was still doing its thing. It wasn't until you got to the Penn State game and injuries started to be an issue. So remember, they go into that game, they have to switch the offensive line around because I think it was one of the tackles was injured. So Carson Barnhart moves to the other side. That's injury number one. This is on top of the adversity with Jim being out, right? But then J.J. McCarthy gets injured in that game. And I don't think people realize how injured. And so you get into the Maryland game, and we went over this in the film study. There was an RPO early in the game that he missed. And it was like a technical thing. Like, he doesn't miss plays. He doesn't miss throws. He missed the shot play down the field, right? He was making these uncharacteristic plays, and it was like, what? Well, why? Why is he doing this? It was because he barely practiced during the week. He could barely walk. And so they get into halftime, and this is one of the things that Kirk Campbell said during media day. I said, Kirk, do people have an appreciation for how hurt J.J. McCarthy was late in the season, especially in the Maryland game? He said, no, I do. He said, I know that we were in the locker room, and he had tears flowing down his face because he was in so much pain at halftime of that game. It was amazing that he played. It was amazing that he came out in the second half and put it aside. He already had the respect of his teammates, but this sends it to another level when a guy puts it on the line like that and performs well enough. Was it great? Was it vintage? No. But you're in a position late in the season where you got to figure it out. You got to figure out how we win without our head coach. How do we win with our quarterback who's 60% maybe? Can't run the football. We want to know why they ain't throwing so much play action. Well, Steve, if you can't plant and drive off your front leg, you aren't calling a lot of pass plays down the field. Now it all makes sense, right? So why all of a sudden is the play calling kind of looking different? They're adapting to the situation. And it's not just the opponent, it's them too. Their quarterback couldn't do all the things he was doing earlier in the season. Now in this game, Steve, they say he can.
Yeah. And the thing is, when we're looking at the national pundits, one of the it's so stupid because that's what they're doing, especially on TV, national radio. We like to give a bit more depth and detail. Everybody does. And when you keep it simple, they just sit there and they look at the touchdown production of J.J. McCarthy going down, and they say, well, he's the same quarterback. And then they're going to start to insinuate why he's not the same quarterback, which we don't even need to get into. But the truth is, once again, teams ranked in the top 10 and are considered an underdog by most people predicting this game. Michigan playing against teams statistically rated as the top defenses in the nation 3 times in the past 4 games. Michigan wins. No credit. But that's okay because Michigan can turn this all around by winning this afternoon.
You know who likes Michigan is the numbers, right? The analytics. I think Vegas, that last look was maybe -1. Michigan had moved a little bit during the line, but the analytics, the SP Plus, they're like a -8 or a -9.
And the point spread just moved up again, everybody, from -1.5 to -2.5 in this one, despite all the people that are putting money on Alabama over the last few weeks. The line just decided to go up. I wonder why.
Still to come on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff, we're going to bring to you the winning game plan. We have a Sugar Bowl preview, and we have a lot more on this game, the Rose Bowl. Number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama in a college football playoff semifinal. We are live at the Rose Bowl. Coming up next, we're going to meet the Crimson Tide. We're going to break this down. You know, we played a lot of games this year, Steve, where we didn't really have to spend a lot of time on the opponent. That's not the case when you get to the end of the season, especially in the playoffs. So we're going to meet the Crimson Tide next. You're listening to the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff live from right outside Section A, or Entrance A at the Rose Bowl on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, the ticket. Later on radio. The stream is still going. I'll be right back.
Well, it's too bad. It's kind of gone away now, but somebody did puffs of smoke that said Happy New Year 2024 right up there. It was as visible as all get out. And they had like 8 to 10 to 12 different puffs of smoke for each letter. So you had like pixelated Happy New Year 2024 just above us. It's kind of fading out now, so it's probably not worth looking at it at the crowd. But during that last segment while we were talking, I happened to notice it. And that's just part of the pageantry that's going on here at the Rose Bowl. Also, lots of drones everywhere. You might be reading that there's a big drone show after the game. Have no idea what it's all about, but we've already seen a couple of drones flying by around the stadium. And, of course, the massive cable and wiring that's going on from outside the stadium into the parking lots, too, giving people a view of what it's like to be walking up this tremendous entrance with the Rose Bowl emblem.
So, to the folks, I can't switch my camera around. I can't switch my camera.
Here, I'll give it.
So, the camera quality is based on Wi-Fi, so you got to bear with us. Now, it might be better from the cell phone. So, I don't know, Miz, if you think the cell phone quality video is better than the camera quality video, maybe we'll switch to that as the main camera moving forward. We can make that pivot. If you think it looks good, you can give us a thumbs up, folks. You are kind of experiencing us live as we troubleshoot, because the foot traffic around here is amazing. We're gonna keep trying. We're gonna stay on. We're gonna keep trying to bring it to you as much as we can while we're here, and just bear with us as we try to figure out the best way to navigate the stream, given the challenges that come up via Wi-Fi. So, in the meantime, in between time.
Yeah, radio is not so bad on Wi-Fi. Video
is bad on Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
Video is bad on Wi-Fi.
And that is why you're not on the same Wi-Fi that I'm using.
Right. But we make do. And the phone is on the network. It's on the Verizon network. So that might be what we do, especially if you're in the chat, give us a thumbs up if you think the camera we're on now, if the quality is better. Give us a thumbs up. Say that's better. Say that's no better. Say it's worse.
It's audience participation. Go to camera one. It's like by a 70 to 30% vote, we're going to camera one.
Right. We'll make it happen. We'll make the pivot if that camera winds up being better. In the meantime, Miz, switch back to the other camera for us.
Hold on, Miz is talking.
On the main camera right now.
Miz says main's better.
Main's better? Okay.
But he's going to use both.
Okay.
But he said keep it going.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to use that as a backup for the people and stuff, but cool deal. It's not friendly for video. Yeah, Wi-Fi is not friendly for video.
Yeah, everyone's saying the main camera's better.
Back in about 20 seconds.
All right.
Back in about 20 seconds.
No. This camera is recording for the live stream too. Yeah.
Standing by. And we are here for the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. We are outside Gate A at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California for the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK. The ticket online at WTK.com and on Ticket TV. We're brought to you by KeyBank, fueled by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and powered by Wolverine Rental. And guys, real quickly, Steve, before we get to meet the Crimson Tide, stadium, mountains, beautiful setting. Can't get better than this.
Beautiful weather. Beautiful weather too. Day. Gosh, I mean, I've been waiting 50 years for this, and we talked about, passing things down to the generations. There's a lot of people that are bringing their parents, other people are bringing their sons and daughters to all of this, and it is something that we just got used to being. If somebody who grew up in the 1970s Michigan was playing in the Rose Bowl in 77, 78, and 79, and then again into the 80s, and it became a rite of passage. And you wanted to be so part of it because the pageantry was so spelled out. We're trying to do the same thing
we have
right here, right now.
Yeah, we have 3 generations of Weintraubs here.
Yeah.
And we were not going to do this for any other bowl game. If they were if Michigan was in a semifinal in any other location, it would not be the case. But it is the Rose Bowl. And Michigan in the Rose Bowl is playing a team, as you heard in the first hour, that actually has a lot of history in Pasadena. They used to play here back in the 20s and even as recently as 1945 before the playoff. And obviously they've been here since then as well. So let's meet the Alabama Crimson Tide, Steve Clark.
Very good. Well, Alabama is making their 14th appearance in the NCAA college football playoff, and they are currently 9-4. Michigan is the only Big Ten team to make it for 3 consecutive years. We know what the big wins are for Alabama. It's beating Georgia by 3 in the SEC championship, and they had 3 other wins over ranked teams. Each of them were by 14 points against Tennessee, LSU, and Ole Miss. Now let's talk about the loss. The loss was a big one at home in Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium. They lost to Texas, who is also in the college football playoff. And many thought if you can't take Texas, then you can't take Bama. And that's exactly how things wound up. Once Georgia lost, you saw that Alabama was able to get in because Texas was able to get in as well. And Florida State was the team that unfortunately was left behind. But all the conference champions were good. Somebody was going to have to not be there, and it happened to be Florida State. But, Bama is playing, I think, only for the second time on this field since 1946. I think they played a national championship game here. Wasn't the Rose Bowl, but it was the championship game on this field in which they won the Natty. I think it was over the Texas Longhorns. No one in the nation has more wins against the number one ranked team than the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Michigan currently is number one in the nation for the first time in, I think, 25 years. I don't think they were ever number one in 2006. So they are expecting, as we've talked about, to get their 12th win over a number one ranked team. We shall see today. Now, some people may know why the Crimson Tide. Why do they call themselves the Crimson Tide? Well, apparently they played against Auburn in the Iron Bowl in Birmingham, and the soil in Birmingham is kind of a reddish clay. And when they were playing through the sod and mucking it up and had this really physical war, their white jerseys all got covered in the red soil. And a writer out there said, we're referring to it as a Crimson Tide because Alabama beat Auburn so badly in that game, a tidal wave of Alabama players, and that's how that came up. And then you may have heard during the course of our stream and our radio broadcast, the sound of an elephant sound effect. And it's like, why is Alabama, have an elephant as their mascot? And that is going to be credit to another writer who saw the size difference between Alabama and their competition and claimed that Bama looked like elephants compared to that competition. And that's kind of how all of that stuck. So that's our little history lesson on the University of Alabama. But I think everybody wants to talk about is their quarterback, Jalen Milroe.
Absolutely.
And at the beginning of the year, and when you assessed all the teams with the best chance to win the national championship or be in the playoff, teams like Ohio State and Georgia were bringing in new quarterbacks while Michigan wasn't. So was Alabama. They had to replace their quarterback too, and nobody had really heard of outside of Tuscaloosa this guy named Jalen Milroe. Now, Milroe looked like a runner only against Texas and was benched in week 3 for USF, but this is a guy that has completely turned it around, so much so that Milroe has actually become the difference maker that we are waiting J.J. McCarthy to have in this 2.5-year stint of J.J. being the guy at Michigan. So Milroe being a +1 runner in addition to their offense is what's going to carry Alabama to success on Michigan's defense. And what we're hoping J.J. McCarthy can live to the fruition of what we've expected him to do ever since he got here, Sam.
Yeah, man, listen, the amount of respect that I mean, immense respect for any player that can overcome the kind of adversity that he's overcome at Bama. It's been very easy for him to go someplace else, but he decided to stick it out because he said, and he told the story, Bill O'Brien basically told me I suck, right? Told me to switch positions. And he talked about that in the media day press conference. How would you feel if your coach told you suck? Well, what he didn't say is this current coaching staff basically said the same thing. They benched you after the Texas game, right? And they benched you for a guy who couldn't play at Notre Dame. A guy who, when he transfers, he's not even playing college football anymore. He's a lacrosse player. They benched you for that guy.
Tyler Buckner.
And you put it to the side. You haven't made it be a thing, made it be a cancerous issue. Everything is kumbaya, but inside, in his private moments, he has to say, yeah, you guys doubted me too. And that's fuel as well. And he's gone out and performed at a really high, at the kind of level that has them here today. I mean, that play, for as much luck as was involved with getting a 4th and 30, there was some skill involved as well, as he was able to survey his options. He found that they were doubling everything inside, single covering on the outside. He found his best receiver, single covered on the outside, and threw a pinpoint pass. The guy he's a really good quarterback. The problem is, and I think this is going to be an issue for them today, Steve, we'll get more into it in the scouting report, is that I do think he's more of a runner than a thrower. He's a better thrower than people gave him credit for, and certainly than Georgia gave him credit for, doing a double spy thing. They were deathly afraid of him running the football, and it allowed him to get comfortable throwing it. But if you flush him, especially away from his throwing hand, now you're testing how much of a thrower he really is. Because we've seen J.J. McCarthy flush to his left and still throw back right and throw a touchdown. Can this guy do it? I expect for that to be an issue, something that Michigan tests today.
So one of the things about Jalen Milroe in Alabama's 4 wins against their ranked teams is that he has thrown for 9 touchdown passes and nearly 1,100 total yards, while also throwing for over 67%. He's currently 4th in passer rating, where JJ is 6th, and he has 23 throwing touchdowns while rushing for 12 TDs. Only Jalen Hurts has had more rushing touchdowns than Jalen Milroe at Alabama. And to show how much they depend on Milroe, his 12 rushing touchdowns are more than the combined output of their top 2 running backs. So that just shows you that when it comes down to scoring time, they're trusting their quarterback to make the rushing touchdowns more than their own running backs. I think it's obvious. They're somewhat comparable. Talia, certain experience, Jalen's got the higher ceiling, but that's kind of the comparison when you watch Alabama play.
Yeah, listen, again, saying he can't throw it, but I think that the mistake a non-coach like me picks out from talking to coaches is teams are too afraid of him running the football, to the point where you mentioned all those throwing touchdowns, and look how many shot plays they hit. Bama is one of the most explosive throwing or passing attacks in the country. They gouge teams, and I think the reason they're able to do that is because teams are so focused on trying to slow him down running the football, when I think the better play is to make him see if he can go on 8-10 play drive, 8 to 10 play drives. Can he be that consistent and be methodical? If he runs for a couple first downs, live with that and see if he can string together play after play after play and get him down the field, as opposed to boom, they hit you with another big play, and that's how they've been beating teams this year.
Well, that's what Alabama does like to do. They don't sit there and try to get 4 or 5 yards at a time. They take chances out on the field, and they're going to take sacks. They've had a number of sacks go against them this year. They're one of the leaders in the country in taking sacks, but to them it doesn't matter because they may sacrifice a possession and punt it, but if they can get a couple of those throws to, go to Jeremy Burton, who is wearing number 3, he's a senior. He's got 8 touchdowns and 777 yards and over 22 yards per catch. So be it. They're not trying to kind of manage their way through and take time off the clock. They want to score, and they do it by, not dinking and dunking, but chucking it up. And because of that, because they're throwing long, you have to stay in the pocket longer. And you stay in the pocket longer, the offensive line can break down, and that's why they give up those sacks. But they don't seem to care in this offense.
Yeah. Hey, he holds the football. It seems kind of counterintuitive that a guy who runs as much as he does, as well as he does, gets sacked as much as he does. But it's to your point, Steve, they're holding the football, trying to get those big plays.
43 times. That is the most in the SEC. Now, a running back situation, real quick, Jace McClellan is number 2. He is a senior that leads the team in rushing with over 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. He didn't play in the SEC championship game with a foot injury. We'll see if he makes it on the field today. Again, he's number 2. Their right tackle, J.C. Latham, number 65, is a consensus second-team All-American. So you know who is really good. And one of the things I learned this week, since our last broadcast talking about Alabama, that we hear about Jalen Milroe's growth. Remember, keep it simple, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about quarterbacks and their performance. I'll tell you about the guy who's probably made the most improvement from week 1 to week 13, and that is their left tackle. He's a freshman. He's a 5-star player named Caden Proctor, who was once with the Iowa Hawkeyes and then flipped on signing day to Alabama. They put him in starting day 1, and he really struggled, and that's one of the reasons why they gave up so many sacks as they did. And they didn't bench him at all. they decided to keep him in there. And I will argue that he has maybe made more improvement in his game from week 1 to this moment in the Rose Bowl than Jalen Milroe did. I'm going to be looking at the left tackle today, Caden Proctor.
Right there with you. And this is one of the places where I think Michigan feels like it has an advantage with not just the individual pass rushing talent that they have up front, but with the twists and stunts, the games that they run up front, the blitzes that they bring, that can, for a guy that's improved, he's still a freshman. And one of the things that Michigan has prided itself on this year is giving the good teams something they haven't seen before. Ohio State talked about it being in the secondary. I think today for Bama is going to be up front.
Still to come on the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff, the winning game plan, a Sugar Bowl preview, and more on the Rose Bowl. Number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama in a college football playoff semifinal. Coming up next, we continue with our Meet the Crimson Tide segment. Stay with us. You're listening to the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff live from the Rose Bowl on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket.
So the question is, do you happen to have another Ethernet cable?
No.
By any chance?
No, and
I may have
Bob, but Bob is not. Bob's going to let us down.
Bob, let down.
So let's go click that. Click connect. Click connect. What about now, Miz? I'm on Alex now. I flipped from Bob to Alex. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So because it's coming through the Via, and yeah, it's coming through. Yeah, all right. Hey, if it sounds good, then we have options. How long till we're back? All right, I'll be right back.
Oh, let me get my phone.
I'm gonna take it with me. An extra footage.
Want to get in on it?
There we go.
Yeah, we got him on camera. What's up, Don?
Hey, I want to introduce you to my first Michigan game.
First Michigan game. How you doing? Go Blue. Okay.
He's from Central Florida.
Okay, that's what's up.
All right.
Folks know Don on Twitter.
Of course, y'all know me.
Look at all the sights and sounds. We'll be down that way. Ray gets the picture.
Okay.
All right, let's go down and talk to the people. Go Blue. Go Blue.
Go Blue. Roll Tide.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Yeah. Look at all these Michigan people.
Let's go Blue. Let's go Blue. Let's go Blue. Let's go Blue. Let's go Blue.
Hold on. I'm on camera. Yeah. That is outstanding, people. I'm not a Bama fan. Well, one Bama fan. One Bama fan. There we go. Go Blue. That is outstanding. Go down this way. Go Blue. Go Blue. What's up? What's up? Go Blue. Go Blue. What's up? Go Blue. Man, it doesn't get any better than that.
All right. Back and forth.
Steve, 45 seconds.
Mr. Weintraub, this is outstanding.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. One of my fraternity little brothers, I reconnected with this summer. I guess I could tell the story on the stream while we're waiting, but he said that, oh, we'll tell later. Stand by. It's a funny story. Stand by. And welcome back to the Rose Bowl. Weintraub, Sam Webb, Steve Clark on Sports Talk 1050 WTK. The ticket online at WTK.com and on Ticket TV. We are staring at the Rose Bowl Stadium. We're right outside Gate A on the south side of the stadium. So if you're listening online and you want to come by and say hi, we've seen a ton of WTK fans. It'd be great to say hello.
Yeah.
And connecting with people that I haven't seen in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's been great to have those connections out here as well. And we are having a lot of fun getting ready for a playoff game, Michigan versus Alabama. And Steve Clark, you were basically halfway through. You got through the offense in our Meet the Crimson Tide. So let's flip to the other side of the ball, what Nick Saban is obviously very much known for. Let's talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide defense.
So on the 25th anniversary of Michigan winning a national championship on this field in Pasadena in 1998, look at the Alabama Crimson Tide defense. You see an extraordinarily good pass rushing team with a secondary that is even more lethal in coverage. And Michigan fans should know, fans of that 97 team, if you have those two things, well, you're going to go pretty far. And Alabama has made it into the playoff because of that defense, because they're absolutely stifling. They can penetrate. They need to cover. Well, the corners will talk about such many catches. Slightly above average. Okay, they would be a surefire positive, advantage point for the Wolverines. Except Michigan's best offensive lineman, Zach Zinner, is out for the season, and we all understand why and how much that hurts Michigan's offensive line. We'll find out how much that means to Michigan's running game when we see them against the Tide and their explosive runs. I appreciate the cheering of that point. Quarterbacks Terry and Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry are the guys that I was talking about before. They've also each named first-team All-Americans by the AP. Arnold has 5 and 11 passes broken up. And the defense in general is very good at pursuing the football. And it's going to be Michigan's toughest test amongst defenses that Michigan has played so far. But if I were to attack Alabama's defense, it would be through the run, where Michigan's strength is. Carrying the ball inside the perimeter. This is the weakness for Alabama's defense. They're just kind of mid to above average when it comes to stopping the run in the NCAA.
So there are a couple of things that are evident about Alabama when you watch them. First of all,
thank you, everybody.
They have talent up in that, like maybe not as talented as vintage Bama teams, but still one of the most talented defenses in the country. 2 first-round corners. They got first-rounders at every level. Dallas Turner, big-time Michigan recruit, chose Bama. Obviously, he'll be a first-rounder, right? They are very well coached. The schemes that they run, you know, the limit for college systems is time. The 20-hour rule, even though we know they go over the 20-hour rule, we know that. But they don't have the time to implement the kind of schemes that you see in the NFL because they still have college, right?
Yes.
In the pros, that's their job. Well, Saban has figured out a way where they have a pro scheme. The things that they do defensively, it's not like other coaches can't see it, don't know. Yeah, they have more talent than most teams, but even the teams with talent they don't do what Bama does because it is hard to teach. So they're well coached and they're talented, but they have vulnerabilities. The teams that have had success have run the football. How have they run the football, Steve? They move around pre-snap, shifts, motion, right? Changing their keys up. The kinds of things that we see Michigan do in their run game. And people think passing game when we talk about give them motion, give them different looks. It matters in the run game too. It maybe matters in the run game more against a team like this where their bigger vulnerability is running the football. So if you can change them up, make them think a little more pre-snap and not let them play as instinctively as they normally play, that is a way to success. And Board just went and scouted every game. The teams who had the most success were the teams who didn't just do motion and shifting a little bit. They did it all the time. Hell, do it every snap if you can. It needs to be on the menu for Michigan today, and I think it will be based on something Sharon said during the press conference this week.
Well, let me tell you why you do something like that, because Alabama is playing graduate-level defense in terms of concept and scheme. So there's some zone matchups and also man-on-man coverage within the same play, and depending on a certain release, you may decide to go zone or man. That you have to be a well-oiled machine to be able to carry that off and to be able to instinctively know who's got who where, when do I play soft coverage, when do I play tight coverage. Well, if you're running motion and shifts and having people go in different places right before the snap, now you keep them thinking as opposed to being, you make them react and don't and have them to think so much doesn't allow you to be instinctive. So one of the first things that you teach in youth football is to be aggressive and go after the ball carrier. But if you're on your heels or taking the time mentally to think what I do next in this method, that is the split-second difference from giving up a big play and stopping one from behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, man, listen, I think Sharon said something during the press conference where he was like, hey, you can't just line up and think you're going to attack this team. You got to try to confuse them a little bit, right? And you got to look at things on film that you can do to confuse them. That's a sign that everything that we saw on film, Michigan obviously did too. I expect to see a lot of that today.
Lastly, if I bring up special teams, it's because it's really, really good. And their kicker, Will Reichert, is the NCAA all-time leader in points scored. And their punter, James Burnett, is second in the nation at over 47 yards per punt. That's a guy who can flip the field and not the guy who's the all-time NCAA scorer. Wow, for the kicking game for Alabama.
Coming up in hour number 3, the winning game plan, a preview of the other playoff game, the Sugar Bowl, and of course more on this game, the Rose Bowl. Number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama in a college football playoff semifinal. Steve, you want to go tell the lady with the ESPN sign that they're not putting her on BTN?
No.
Stay with us. You're listening to the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff live from the Rose Bowl on Sports Talk 1050 WTK. The ticket. And we'll be back.
We should pretend
We're still live during the break.
You're still live?
Right.
how to get here in the manner. Place as a one access. All the different cards that are just lined up. You're going to get over 90,000 fans here in this great venue, which is the Pasadena Rose Bowl. We're happy that you could be a part of this here on video and join us here for the rest of this program. We'll bring a Michigan victory coming up in
That's
just
right.
a few hours.
That is right. This is unbelievable. Got the Big Ten Network next to us. Right there. That's the Big Ten Network. Oh, these Michigan fans. Yeah, man. Right. Oh, that's fun. All right. So this game, if you look at these Bama fans, you think about the level of regard that they have for Michigan. They all think that Michigan is in a bum league. They think the Big Ten is massively overrated. They watched Penn State go down to Ole Miss, right? They think that these squads that Michigan beat just weren't that good. And the fact that Michigan was able to do it without their head coach, without Jim Harbaugh, is proving their point. They are not taking into account how hurt J.J. McCarthy is. I'm going to say this over and over again. The man is the best player left in the field. And I think it's going to show today. I think it's going to show in the national championship game. If you talk about the coaching staffs, maybe you give Nick Saban the edge. He's one of the greatest of all time. He has national championships. But I think Michigan probably feels like, hey, they've done a hell of a coaching job too. You look at their secondary versus Michigan's wide receivers. You get their secondary an edge, but I give Michigan their defensive front an edge against Bama's offensive line. You can do that all day. The biggest gap, this is my point. If you talk about where the disparity lies between these two teams, the biggest gap is at quarterback. And that's not to disparage Jalen Milroe at all. I think Jalen Milroe is an outstanding talent. He is not the thrower that J.J. McCarthy is, and I think that will be evident today. And the reason why it was missed for the last month of the season is because he couldn't run around. He couldn't throw it. He was the key to the running game opening up because he could run the football. We're going to see that today. And then play action. 2 play action passes against Ohio State. Doesn't that strike anyone as odd? As much of a play action team, a play pass team as Michigan is, they ran 2 against Ohio State. I think they ran 1 or none against Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. The man was banged up. They adapted to his health, and they said we don't even need to put his health at greater risk to beat Iowa. Rest up, get him ready for Bama. I think we're going to see the J.J. McCarthy from early in the season today. So be on the lookout for that, folks.
All you need to do is win the game. It doesn't matter whether it's by 40 or by 1.
I agree with you. What do you say?
Top of the hour's coming.
All right.
Top of the hour's coming.
All right. Tell him to switch the camera back. There we go, baby.
Main camera's out.
Main camera's out? Okay. I'm going back. Hold this up.
Hey, man. Sam, what is this?
Batted around and lands incomplete. Wow. Inside handoff. Blake Corn bounces it back the other direction. Blake fighting for the end zone. Touchdown, Wolverines. Has the snap back to pass. Here comes the rush, and it's batted out of his hand. The ball's on the ground, and it's picked up by Kenneth Grant. Looking, here comes the rush. Steps up, and he won't get away from Derek Moore and T.J. Guy. He'll drop for a sack, and Michigan will take over with 1:45 to go, and a 26-0 lead here in Indy.
From Ann Arbor, Michigan and Pasadena, California, this is the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff with College Football Playoff Semifinal at the Rose Bowl. Kickoff from Pasadena is just after 5 p.m. Eastern Time. But first, get ready for the game with the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff. Brought to you by KeyBank. Driven by Brighton Ford. Powered by Wolverine Rental. And fueled by Bud Light. On Sports Talk 1050. WTKA. The Ticket.
Now just over 2 hours until kickoff of here in Southern California. It is plus degree. The sun about 45 or so minutes ago. The Rose Bowl coming up at 5:10 Eastern, 2:10 Pacific here out in Pasadena, California. This is the 21st appearance for the Wolverines here at the Rose Bowl. And this one's a little bit different, Steve Clark, because this one is part of the college football playoff. But we also, as fans, we have this, we remember. And Michigan traveling west, Big Ten teams traveling west. Maybe it's a little different because you're not playing a West Coast team out here. But I know some fans have some pauses and reservations for Michigan going out west because it's caused troubles in the past.
Well, I mean, Michigan doesn't have necessarily the best Rose Bowl history. Most of their wins came early on, but I'll tell you what, when they talk about Alabama's Rose Bowl history, a lot of those came before 1912. So I throw that out, and repressed stories that have gone on in the past. And I think one of the things that you have to understand that Michigan are full and different since 2021 season. That has a lot with the attitude, the football player, the willing to
Next play. Not football, but next play.
Rolling up. Damn buses making their way in at the Crimson Tide. Nick Saban. Rolling right. Rolling in right now. Wow, we're in a tournament. We're going to draw a lot of Michigan eyes, right? So I don't think this is representative of the breakdown of fans. In the sense, I heard it was like 55, 45, 53, 47 Michigan fans in this game. Is that about right?
I agree with a lot of this. I think we're finding out the game is still
Yeah, it's one of those games where I think reputation is driving a lot of the success here. So much is being made of the fact that Michigan lost their last two playoff games. They have a better record. They have more losses in the playoff than they do in the regular season. So, what does that really mean? They lost to an all-time great team a couple of years ago. And last year, they got caught napping at the beginning of that game. By the time they adjusted, it was too late, too much of a hole to come back out of. I think that this is the culmination of the experience that they gained from those first two runs and figuring out some of the things that didn't go right, correcting those. So that's one of the things that the players talked about when they talked about the schedule change to keep their legs fresher. And then the attention being had of the team heading in, and then finally, this is one of those things you just can't plan for as a coach. You know, the health factor being such an issue, as much of an issue as it was, finally having an opportunity to get that right I think returns this team to the form they had early in the season at a point where they're going to face the most adversity that they've seen this season on the field in terms of an opponent. But I really don't think that's going to matter because of all the adversities they've dealt with on and off the field up to this point.
I'll tell you what, Sam, there was an earthquake this morning in Los Angeles around 8:30 a.m. We could change there.
Yeah, on the last year before the expansion of the playoff.
We talked about it in the first hour. Talking about Rose Bowl on January 1st might not quite be the same in the future, right? Because the game might be a week earlier because of how the playoff structure is, or maybe it's a week later. We don't know exactly how that structure is going to be. We know the first round games will be on campus. The next round games will be a different.
And the next round games will be a different sites, and that include here. And if that's December 12th Rose Bowl, it's still gonna be cool, but it's not January 1st at 10 Eastern at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, so you got opening rounds. Okay, that's 5-2. You're gonna have teams left after 2 out of every 3 is going to host a quarterfinal game. It's a semifinal game. It's right now a semifinal.
Correct. And this year it's going to be. So that's kind of how that's.
Coming up next, we're going to preview the other game. The game, of course, is down in the Sugar Bowl, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time, to kick off of the other national semifinal. That is, of course, number 2 Washington versus number 3 Texas. We also on the show sort of come up with a game plan and game predictions and more on this match. It's the Rose Bowl, number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama.
It's important to do that because we need to know who Michigan's playing on Monday.
Well said, Steve Clark. Coming up next, your Sugar Bowl preview. Stay with us. You're listening to the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff live from the Rose Bowl on Sports Talk 1050 WTK. The Ticket.
What's going on, man?
What? Going out?
Nah, I'm trying to see what the issue is with this.
Because more people are coming in.
Yeah, I know, but we're supposed to be above everybody, but there's a lot of cops on the line, too.
So I think what's happening is we're losing connection to the internet, and every time you lose connection to the internet,
Right. Because even on the first responders, there's so many freaking first responders here that it's not going to help.
yeah, every time we lose connection to the internet, the camera goes out.
So we're going to wait a bunch of the buses that
We're trying.
Some people talking shit about
hold
this
up.
all the
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. You were showing yours.
Hear me anywhere.
If you can hear me anywhere, text me.
Okay, we're back on.
Yeah. When you was moving.
I'm having phone problems. My phone. I have my phone shut up. My phone just shut down on me. Like, but not. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Even when the picture is bad, you can still hear. We're in the break right now, dog. We don't have that much audio going.
Yeah, we're not. We're trying to get this working.
I heard you. Hear me?
Okay. Trying to restart Alex, see if that helps, but it's not going to help.
Yeah, so every time there's an internet, a signal drop, it shuts off the camera. Yeah, that's right.
Are you talking to Miss?
No. Okay.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
I'm gonna put the phone back in Dre's hand.
Out in Pasadena.
We're out. I mean, we have nothing here. We're off.
We're off.
So everything's shut. Like Kodak is Cano. Miz, do you hear me right now? I don't know. All right, we're connected for the moment. I'm restarting Alex. See what happened. I'm just gonna bounce back and forth. We're coming back. All right, stand by. We're coming back.
About to go back on. All right. Yeah.
Yep, standing by.
You put it down.
And we are live at the Rose Bowl. We're doing the best we can here, live outside the Rose Bowl Stadium. And needless to say, as more and more people come, it makes things a lot more crazy. But we're doing the best we can. And while we're here, until we get ready to go inside the stadium, I'm here with my guys, Sam Webb, Steve Clark, in this beautiful setting, which is now being obstructed by Alabama buses. But we'll get back to our beautiful setting in a moment. In the meantime, guys, tonight is the other matchup. The winner of this game, of course, will face the winner of the other game. And in fact, if Michigan wins tonight or today, the national championship game there will be a rematch of the national championship game next year because Michigan plays both Texas and Washington next year. But how about that matchup this year, Steve Clark, between Texas and Washington coming up down in New Orleans?
Well, I think one of the things is the interior line of Texas, headlined by Devondre Sweat, who's like 360 pounds, and their other interior guy, Byron Murphy's going up against this year's Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line from Washington. I think that is your matchup right there. Two heavyweights on both sides of the line in the trenches. Who's going to win that battle in the war? Otherwise, you're kind of looking at what Quinn Ewers can do as an will play ball. And on the other side, you've got the evolution of which at the beginning of the year was all about passing the ball downfield to their star players. And because they learned their offensive ball too. So team of the they played, and I guess I haven't seen Texas too much. I know they beat Bama in Bama.
They lost to Kansas as well. Listen, last week talked out of Oregon game. He was like, Oregon's more, and now Oregon's. I know Oregon had more talent or has more talent than Washington. Washington is a talented team too. You've been watching my.
Yes,
it seems like it. They have receivers that can go get it. One guy who's going to go really high. But I said this moment he got to watch. Guy. He's a difference maker as a coach. I think he is an outstanding offensive mind. And to me, that was what had me ready to say, you know what, Washington's going to beat Oregon, but I got psyched out. Well, exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. Whereas this guy, when it comes to scheming guys open, he's excellent at it. The issue that won't be an issue today, but I think will be an issue against either of these teams, I just don't, the way they play offense, Washington and Texas, I don't think it caters to playing good defense. Now you say, well, Texas beat Alabama. early in the season before they found themselves at quarterback. This is a much different Alabama team. You can't watch that Alabama-Texas game and think that's representative of the Alabama that you see today. So I think they play that game over again. Texas got a big problem because what you got to do against this squad, and what I don't know if either of those squads do well enough now, run the football, so have some semblance of balance, help protect your defense, keep it fresh enough to go out and get some stops on the other side. That won't be an issue today, though, because today is a track meet. So whoever you think is the most explosive, and I'm going to go with Washington in this game because I think Xavier Worthy is still banged up. And an Xavier Worthy that's 80%, a little less than mock speed, I think is a problem against a team that you need all your octane to beat, that being Washington today.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas in this one because I think they have help other than Xavier Worthy. And their second receiver, whose name escapes me at the moment, I think is a guy to watch out for in this game. And Sarkisian could, scheme an offensive design as well as anybody in this. So where is the team at its weakest? Might be the Washington Huskies defense. Not that it's horrible. It's just probably the weaker of the two defenses. You just have to overcome what people are criticizing Michigan for, not being able to win in the big moment. Some people are saying the same thing about the Texas Longhorns. Maybe both teams take care of that moniker today.
Here's what I know about Quinn Ewers. He'll throw it to the other team.
He will.
He'll throw it to the other team. And Michael Penix takes care of the football. Now, they both get the answers from the sideline. So how much are they really doing, right? But Michael Penix, within the context of what they're asked to do, takes better care of the football than the guy that he's matched up with today.
Well, turnovers makes a big difference, especially in big games where, if you win the turnover margin, you're going to probably win 80% of the time. At least that's what I've been told. Coach Carr, I think he said that at one point.
That game kicks off at around 8:45 Eastern time from down in the Superdome in New Orleans, down in Louisiana. That is the second semifinal matchup. Of course, the first semifinal matchup, guys, takes place right here at the Rose Bowl. Kickoff is at 5:10 Eastern, 2:10 local time. And the fans are really now, the pace of entry into the stadium, Steve, has really picked up. Both teams obviously are here. We heard the Alabama arrival recently, and the crowds are getting thicker and thicker as they make way into the stadium.
Well, at some point, as great as it is where we're at right now,
you got to go inside.
You want to see what it's like inside this wonderful stadium.
Right.
And as someone, and I think all of us had a chance to go out and walk on the field earlier this morning, it's just majestic. And the grass is absolutely incredible. The paint is absolutely outstanding. If you haven't seen it already, on Michigan's side of the field, there are blue numbers.
I love the detail, the outlines of the numbers. On the 50, there's one red, one blue. But then on the Michigan side, they're all blue numbers outlined. On the Alabama side, all red outline. They're really cool.
Yeah, now the white paint is still there.
But it's got
but the outline shade is with Michigan. And I think they did a great job with the paint scheme inside the Michigan end zone. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but I like the shade of blue that they put in that particular end zone. And for Alabama's side, who cares?
I just like this. I mean, the setting. Just where we are, the mountains. It is majestic. The word you used, I think, sums it up perfectly about this scene. If you're a football fan, a college football fan especially, you got to come here at least once. You got to come.
And for you Michigan fans that are going to be on the Michigan side of the field, your view will be of the San Gabriel Mountains. As the sun sets behind you, the San Gabriel will be in front of you, and it's going to be a perfect afternoon for football here in Pasadena, California.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Michigan has had a chance to come back here and to experience all this, which is why I think the numbers are going to be so incredible. Maybe not as many Alabama fans because they're saving some of their money for Houston. They might end up having a lot more money for 2024 saved up when they don't go to either.
Let's hope that's the case. Coming up next, we have the winning game plan and more on this matchup, the Rose Bowl, Michigan versus Alabama. Kickoff from Pasadena is at 5:10 Eastern, 2:10 local time. We have more on the other side of the break here on the KeyBank Countdown, a kickoff live from Pasadena, California on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, the ticket. All right.
Keep going. All right. Go blue. Get a go blue in there. Where'd you come from?
Pasadena.
Pasadena. Okay. So you just walked over here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing? Doing all right?
This is a legend right here. Nice. Sam Webb.
How you doing? Yeah, we got a lot of Michigan fans in here. That's real live. That's right.
I thought about this. I don't think about it.
Get it.
I'm doing what I said I wanted to do.
Go. Go blue.
Oh, blue.
Outside the Rose Bowl, but it kind of all goes in hand with what I want.
All right. All right, let's go back on stage. I think we need a Flavor Flav next time. They got a Flavor Flav over there. Yeah. Yeah, Big City Network got a hype man or a hype woman. Go blue. All right. This one went off. Hold this. Every time that internet signal drops.
Cam is back out again.
Yeah.
We're back in about a minute.
Just holding up for the show.
We do the best we can.
That's it.
You know what I don't see out here? I don't see any Alabama radio.
Zero.
We do the best we can. They didn't even try. There you go. Bring it. Try it. Bring it for 30 more minutes.
You guys getting butterflies yet?
When I went in, when I walked around the
Yeah.
during my adult life, going to sporting venues, it's not fair to I think the big house is own category. I go every week, right? The place that I don't go regularly, only two venues that I've been in my adult life that really moved me. 30 seconds. This is the second. The first was Augusta.
The first was
Augusta National.
Oh.
But you're walking on that hallowed ground of that sport, right? There, right? It's you think about what happened here. We're right in front of the Jackie Robinson statue. Like, there's a lot of amazing history. Craig Ross! What's up, Craig?
Is there a way to reset Deborah?
We're back in 10 seconds, Sam.
All right, so what I can do?
Hold the camera.
Hold the camera.
Hey, this how you want it? This up, or you want me to turn it around?
Welcome back to the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff, brought to you by Key Bank, by Bud Light, by Bright Food, and powered by This is the time I should see the usually release the injury report that's followed by Michigan. It's not a big Ten game. I don't really actually see the injury report. But I do want to bring this
conversation back because there were a couple of injury-related things that we do need to discuss as we get to the key matchups in this game. The first one, Sam, let's go back again and kind of reiterate that, what the last month, plus really last 8 weeks has been like for JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, it's been since that Penn State game, it's been a matter of managing his usage. So here's the mistake I made, telling people that it was just about how much they run him. That was my mistake, and I apologize for not being as thorough in the intel gathering on how limited he really was by his injury. I knew he had been banged up significantly to in that Penn State game, to the point of being limited in practice. The week of the Maryland game, I didn't know that he barely practiced until after the fact. I certainly didn't know that he was in tears at halftime until after the fact. And so then you see him come out after that game, and he's able to be better against Ohio State, run a little bit more on his passing menu, but still very limited in the number of play passes. And why does that show up? Because when you're doing play passes, that's a chunk play. That's your 5 or 7 step drop, and you are driving the football down the football field. Well, if you're banged up in your knee, I won't say which one, even though Kirk Campbell said which one. I won't say which one. You can't plant and drive, Steve. You can't drive the football down the football field. So you don't want to put him in position where you're asking him to do that a lot. And Kirk said, hey, we had to figure out ways to, get the ball out of his hands, off-platform throws where he doesn't have to plant and drive off his leg as much to throw the football. Now, these are things that you would never know as a fan. Oh, they're just, Sharon is just vanilla and he's just conservative. And no, they had to play the hand that they were dealt. He's still better than the other quarterbacks at 60%, but you're limited in how you can use him at 60%, Steve Clark.
Sure. And, his speed went from 4.4 to about 4.9, just as a guess. But, you could see that on the field. And also there weren't many design calls run for that. Alabama's going to check the tape on every single game. So they know what he's capable of. The nation isn't exactly aware of what he's capable of, and I think they're going to see what J.J. McCarthy can do in these situations.
I do too. They're testing the pyrotechnics in the background, by the way, for those that are hearing the explosions. We want to see some explosions in the Michigan offense.
That's right. Yeah, there's the fireworks going off. So Alabama, of course, has team speed on defense too, and they play very well on the perimeters. It's the interiors that maybe where Alabama is not as strong. So that sounds great. Michigan's going to run up the middle. The thing is, without Zach Zinter, that is potentially a different story. One of the great news things that I decided to do a research and look at was the number of Blake Corum touchdowns and how they were scored. And the ones that were inside the 5-yard line, where it was basically a goal line situation, they ran over left as much as they ran over right. So it wasn't like Michigan was 80% dominant to the right side when they needed it. But when it comes to this game, Sam, I think we know that Jim Harbaugh is going to go for it on 4th down. And the question is, Michigan offensive line that doesn't have the first time get a crack at it, will and they need us because Michigan go for it in those key situations, including maybe even 4th down on their side of the field.
Yeah, listen, this is one of those.
Like there's no tomorrow. So J.J. McCarthy's going to be involved in the run. This is how you balance the equation against the front that's really aggressive. Guys who are off the edge that can really pin the ears back. Now, you definitely have a drop-off going from All-American Zach Zinter to Carson Barnhart. And that's not any disrespect to Carson. Carson's a good player. We're talking about Zach being an All-American. But here's the thing. This is the rub.
I actually think they're going to be better in the run game at right tackle. Trente. Mm-hmm. I think he's more physical. I think he's more athletic. I think it took him a minute to get reacclimated to being an every down player. But, man, you talk about a guy who feels like he got in his groove. He got in late in that Ohio State game, and it felt like there was no drop-off, and he came out against Maryland, graded out pretty well him individually. I think Trente Jones is not going to be an issue in this game, but that doesn't mean that Bama still can't have still can't have success. I think they can. I think this is where play calling and using JJ to offset their aggression really plays into the equation for Michigan today.
I think one of the interesting aspects is if Alabama can get a decent pass rush, is some of the tight ends actually where Michigan is a strength at getting people out to the flat and getting those first downs, in short yardage situations, whether they'll have to be into pass protect instead of going out. And I think A.J. Barner is probably the better pass blocker one, while Colson Loveland can go out and get receive. Another thing that I think is very possible is that this could come down to coaches' calls on both sides and identifying things within the game. One possession after another, figuring something out. Let's try this here. Let's try that. And ultimately, when it comes to big plays, it could be about whether it's offense or defense making big plays. It's like, did they guess right, or did they get an educated guess right against what the other team started to show. And I think if I could be a fly on the wall, it would be inside the coach's box to know whether gambles paid off or not, or whether they just said, man, we just got beat on a perfect call, and that's just the way it goes. These are the little things that I would just love to find out.
One other part of the injuries, I just want to shout out Junior Colson for how long has he played with basically like 2 casts on his hands. And I remember when we were at Somerset Collection, I walked in after I had moved I had to run out to my car. I walked back in. It's before everybody's getting there, and I see a guy in front, and you start low, you see the shoes. As you work your way up, I see the hands. Like, oh, that's Junior Colson. And both those hands are still in these giant wraps. He's been playing him for a while. He's been playing really effective football. But on the outside of him, defensively, Sam, it seems like they're pretty healthy, right?
Pretty healthy, yes. Will Johnson, who obviously sat out the Iowa game, the Big Ten championship game. He had gotten banged up during the week of the Ohio State game. So that injury, the injury that kept him out against Iowa, that put him out against Ohio State, it actually sustained during the week of practice leading up to Ohio State. Was good enough to go, good enough to play well, get an interception, aggravated it in the game, and basically didn't play in the final quarter. He's healthy, right? He's back. Junior, he still has the club on one hand, but the other hand, if you notice, that one was really super wrapped up, and there was less wrap on that hand since we've been out here. So he's healthier, right? The whole team across the board. And Bama, this goes for Bama too.
Sure.
Right? This month was huge for them, but more so for Michigan because they had so many key guys that were banged up that I think you're going to see the better form of Michigan, a more improved form of Michigan today than you will from Alabama because I don't think they were as banged up as the Wolverines.
So it's interesting. We have talked about it earlier about motions and shifts to confuse the defense, and the teams that have had more success against Alabama did that. Alabama's offense does the same thing in general to their opponents and obviously does the same thing to their own defense in practice. So one of the things that I think is important is eye discipline on defense for both teams. You got to have the eyes in the right spot to make sure that you're not burned on something because, again, you've got 2 fast teams that if you miss out, it can result in a big play.
I mean, I think Michigan has to, on defense, has to balance their aggression. Like they're an aggressive playing defense, but in their nature. But I think in this game, it behooves them to be a little more. Keep everything in front. Like if they can dunk, you're gonna have to tip your cap to them because what they want to do is explosive plays. I mean, every team wants to, but they try it. To your point, they risk it a lot. They risk it for the biscuit all the time. So force them by how you play them to show that they can be methodical. And then there are things you can do. There are ways to be aggressive within that. This is not just me talking. This is consulting a lot of coaches. And I'm going to go back to the scouting report from Vance. Vance is a very aggressive coach by nature, too. So I thought he was about to stroke out when he was talking about Georgia double spying Jalen Milroe. He said, that's way too conservative. He said, spy him some. But he said, man, you got to blitz this side. So blitz him, play soft. But where you blitz him from, I think, is what is important because he referenced tempo defense from 2000 when Vance was staff. They played Florida in the Capital One Bowl, right? Florida and Urban Meyer, he's trying him. So what they decided was he's more of a runner than he is a thrower. So what we're going to do is Tim Tebow a righty?
Yeah.
Lefty. He was a lefty.
He was a lefty.
Yeah,
So what he said was, we're going to blitz him from his left. We're going to blitz him from his left and force him to run right.
Correct. Yep.
Force him to run right. Because a guy who's mostly a runner, when you put him on the run away from his throwing hand, that guy is more prone to run than pass. It's hard to throw across his body. Now, J.J. McCarthy is different because he's more of a passer than he is a runner. He can run, but you blitz him from his right, he can still rush from his left, rush to his left, and throw it across his body and do it with accuracy. Can Jalen Milroe do that? Haven't really seen it. Maybe he'll show it today, but he has to prove it. But you go into this game thinking if we blitz him from his right, he's scrambling to his left. Guess what, defense? Play him to run. Play him to run because we don't think that he can throw it when he's on the move to his left. That's an advantage for the defense if it works out that way. And if he can do it, that's when you just got to tip your cap because this is what it boils down. In a game like this, talent is fairly even, coaching is fairly even. It's the guy, which guy on the team is going to make the plays when they're in a situation like that. And to me, it's J.J. McCarthy more than it is Jalen Milroe.
So a lot of people have watched a lot of Rose Bowls or come here to Pasadena to watch the Rose Bowl. Back in their mind, they're thinking Jalen Milroe, is he Warren Moon? Is he Mark Brunell? Is he Rodney Peete? Is he Vince Young? And that's the thing that they just don't want to see history repeat itself. And I try to tell people who tell me about that it sticks in their mind. This is a different Michigan defensive line with a different mindset and a different way of attacking, yet they still play disciplined football at the same time. Michigan's defensive line plays very well horizontally. Nick Saban giving much credit to Michigan's defense as general, as a team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes and playing sound. This is sort of like what you hear about Iowa's defense. Nick Saban was saying that about Michigan. So Jalen Milroe and J.J. McCarthy, these are the two X factors that are going to mean the most in this game. It's a graduate course, and it's final exam time, Sam. And one of these two quarterbacks is going to get it done, and the other is not.
I've been asked a lot. And, I generally defer most of the breakdown to you guys, but people keep asking me, and I said the same thing. Make him run left. Make him run left. Right, make him run left. I was a lot more simple in my explanation, but I'm like, make him run left.
Yeah.
That's my starting point. And the other part is the guys up front on the Michigan defense, the guys in the middle and the guys on the edge. If those guys can win their battles enough in the game, then it allows the guys in the back to do what they need to do to stop everything else that's going to happen. You got to win the trenches for Michigan's defense. You got to win in the trenches. And that's, if you go back 2 years ago, what did Georgia have? They had 1,000 guys that were rolling through. Right? The better team in the trenches going to win the game. Specifically, if Michigan's defensive line can hold up against Alabama's offensive front, it allows the back end to go and make some plays. Well, guys, we have one more segment.
Wow.
You're going to make picks, and we're going to talk about this beautiful setting a little more. Hopefully, we'll not hear that elephant roaring again because that was really obnoxious. Hopefully, we'll not hear that a whole lot inside. I don't know if they play it in the game or not, but hopefully they will not. But on the other side of the break, live from outside the Rose Bowl, we're going to give you your game picks and final thoughts on Michigan versus Alabama, number 1 versus number 4 in a college football playoff semifinal here in Pasadena, California. We come back on the other side of the break, live on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff from the Rose Bowl on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket.
That picture goes out, fix that up. If they, I'm gonna pay to get a line. Pay for them to drop a line for him.
Well, it's a lot different in Catholic. Fewer people, and you have more recruits.
Go blue! Go blue!
We didn't. We never had an issue in Indy. We go see this game. Born on third base. You need you need reading glasses? right. Are we still there, Miz? All right. Sam's taking some photos. All right, so 90 seconds till we're back, so that makes it 48. So we have about 8, right? 48 and 8 gets us to 56. We have about 8 minutes for pause. Oh, lunch looks good. Where the hell is that? Is that in the tent? Nah. Well, it's time to go there, though. That's the problem.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Go Big Ten Network.
How's it going? All right. I know. All right. Is about a minute. All right. Damn. Standing by. And we are back on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff. We've been brought to you by KeyBank, fueled by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and powered by Wolverine Rental here on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, live from the Rose Bowl. Sam's been hanging out with the people. A lot of Michigan fans, needless to say, a lot of TKA listeners have stopped by to say hello. Seen a lot of old friends and family and whatnot. It's been great. It's a Michigan West Coast reunion. As Steve, we have come back to where we've wanted to be for a very long time.
Yep, and we're seeing people. We're seeing our fans. We're also seeing people that we're kind of fans of. So there's a little bit of that going on too. But I'm the biggest fan of this stadium. And to be able to go inside earlier on today is absolutely amazing. And this is an epic matchup. Michigan versus Alabama. And there's a lot at stake here, Sam. There is, Michigan has an opportunity right now to put a chink in what's left of Alabama's dynasty. Now, how long can Alabama keep this going? Who knows? Maybe it goes on for another 20 years and different head coaches. But it also has the possibility of seeing them lose at home, which they hadn't lost at home in forever, to a current team in the playoff, and now in their bowl game against Michigan. And for the Wolverines, this feels like a culmination game. That, this is J.J. McCarthy. This is about this group, Blake Corum, who came back, the offensive lineman that came back, the Play for One More Year campaign. They are here to make this moment happen for them and each other later this afternoon. If it doesn't go their way, well, I think it's obvious where people are going to start, talking about and start writing about what this team actually is. So there's a lot at stake for both teams. But I think it is Michigan, not Alabama, that seems to be the team of destiny. Their reporters are talking about the Tide as a team of destiny. Michigan and all they have gone through on the field and off the field in their toughest games and in their toughest moments. This is a Michigan team that will find a way to make it a storybook season.
I think as much as you talked about Ohio State, the Ohio State game being a referendum on Michigan season, a referendum on Signgate, I think this is extended to that too, because the narrative is still there. It didn't die with Ohio State. It's like Ohio State they really aren't as good as we thought they were. That's what that morphed into. Keep moving the finish line, right?
That's what people do.
So, and it's hard to reason with people who think you needed signs to beat Rutgers and East Carolina, which is essentially what they're in Nebraska. That's what they were saying. So the only way to shut people like that up is to beat a team like you beat Bama. How about now? Now what? No signs, right? They're a good team. Everyone coming into this game, they're like, you're not at home. People don't think you have a great advantage at quarterback because they're killing JJ like he's just this regular dude. Okay.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Now,
they're just looking at stats.
You beat them. You beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl with no signs against Nick Saban. What are you going to say? What can anyone say at that point about science? They even brought that up. The last question, I swear I wanted to ask this question, because typically I let the rest of the media do their thing at press conferences. It's just, but this was one where I wanted to ask a question, because the last one asked to Jim. No, it was asked to Saban. He said, hey, how concerned are you about the sign stealing, and how do you think that's going to affect you in this game? What did you do to prepare for it? Nick said, well, we're not really concerned about it. We're concerned about the integrity of the game. Screw you, Nick. That's what Jim wanted to say, right? He didn't say those words. That's what he wanted to say, right? I wanted to ask after that, hey, so Harbaugh, are you really concerned about George Hilo being hired by Nick Saban heading into this game? Because if we're really talking about signs, right, you got the guy who was in the building for 2 years.
And by the way,
who knows the personnel.
Just for the record, what Alabama was talking about, they're limiting the access to video and how they watch tape. Michigan has been doing that since the Penn State game. The end. It's not Michigan, and it's been happening. Michigan's been doing it since the Penn State game. They've been limiting the access to their video too. It's not even a storyline. It's just a bunch of, what's in the media moving a point.
Right. So you got to win. You got to win today. Shut them up. Not that them talking will take away from my joy, because I think Michigan's going to win this game. Maybe go ahead and give because I'll leave the floor to you. Listen, J.J. McCarthy is the difference in this game. I think both teams can make some plays. The likes of which we hadn't seen since the beginning of the year, with Colston Loveland and Donovan Edwards being keys to it. 27-20 Michigan.
Michigan's going to be really disappointed if J.J. McCarthy doesn't run the ball for some first downs, and they're going to be really disappointed if they don't see Donovan Edwards catching the ball in the flats or down the field, because those are the potential things that are going to make Michigan different in years past to what Michigan is supposed to be today. I expect those things to happen. I also expect Michigan is going to try to drain the clock, and I expect Alabama to continue to make big plays every once in a while. That's going to keep Alabama in this ball game. In fact, they might even have a lead in the fourth quarter. The way I'm looking at it right now, Michigan has another game-defining drive in the fourth quarter. And after a couple of opportunities inside the 5-yard line, it is going to be Blake Corum that scores the game-winning touchdown with about a minute left to go. And Michigan prevails in this one by a score of 24-21.
And if that is what happens, I will see you, and I will see you on the field celebrating after the game, because that's where we'll be. Enjoy the game, everybody. I want to thank our guy, Miz, back inside the Ticket Studios back in Ann Arbor. Thanks to Dre Barthwell here running the cameras for Sam. Dre doing a great job. Thanks to Greg Dooley, Steve Clark, Sam Webb, and, of course, all of you for listening to today's show, and everybody that stopped by. Appreciate that as well. In about an hour, it is the Rose Bowl. Number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama in a college football playoff semifinal here in Pasadena, California. The winner goes to the national championship game. It is now time for coverage for the Michigan Sports Network. Enjoy the game, everybody. It is Michigan versus everybody. And as always, go Blue!